अहमद भाई आपको मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
Yes, Jiari. I'm here.
जी इमरान भाई, सलाम अलैकुम।
Walaikum salam. Can you hear me?
Yes sir, I can hear you loud
Clearly.
and clear.
Clearly.
Great.
So shall we start? I think.
Sure, we can go ahead and start.
Okay, let me message Assam. Okay, yes, they're going live now. अहमद भाई जरा व्हाट्सएप देख लीजिए।
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Assalamu alaikum, Imran Saab. How do you do today? Rafi, assalamu alaikum.
वालेकुम सलाम।
Well, thank you. Walaikum salam.
So, thank you so much for joining us for this special edition of our, community outreach that we continue to do in different parts of the world, whether it be IRL, where, for example, we're doing a lot of, in real life connects with different with our community in different parts of the world. But also, there are a series of podcasts and AMAs and sessions just like this where we continue to interact with our community. And we're very thankful not just to all of the participants that make this happen, but also to the community that continues to show up in droves every now and then. And they exhibit really this fervor to learn more about what we're doing, and that also gives us a great opportunity to also share with them everything that we have been building towards. Unfortunately, in this space, fortunately or unfortunately, in this space, a lot of things really remain under the garb of lack of transparency. But we, as a blockchain, and even before as a protocol, the team has always prioritized open communication and transparency first with our community, because really built in public is the way to go. I would like to thank my the guests today, Rafik, the co-founder of ZigChain. All of you know him better as the master of coin and the chief food officer as well. But also Imran Saab. Imran Said Saab is part of the faculty of entrepreneurship and innovation at MIT Sloan School of Management. He is also he works very closely with ZigChain, Disrupt, and a number of other of our group entities. And personally, and this is more for the audience, he has been very supportive and of what we're trying to do with ZigChain. And also his insights have been extremely valuable in terms of how we have been trying to build this out. Welcome, Imran Saab, to the show.
Thank you, Ahmed, for the kind introduction. Hope you guys are all doing well.
100% amazing. So the first question, Imran Saab, to really get this party going, we have a very blockchain-oriented audience over here today with a very limited exposure to AI. In your experience, where you have had the opportunity to really interact with different industries across, so many decades, and even now you are advising and really participating in your position as an academic with so many of the business leaders of today. How do you see AI reshaping and disrupting industries globally?
No, thanks for that question, Ahmed. Great point. I think to understand the impact of AI, we really have to go back about 25 years, or actually maybe 30 years, actually. I know that's older than many of the audience here, especially in this blockchain tokenization era. But for an old person like me, it's really interesting when the dawn of the internet happened, right? And there are so many parallels between the dawn of the internet and the dawn of the AI age at this point, where at the beginning people weren't sure what was possible. There was a lot of folks were taking what they had done in the offline world and just bringing it to the internet. And then eventually what started happening is that entire new categories of business models and companies came up, right? Social media came about because of Facebook and whatnot. Search engine optimization and that whole industry came about because of Google. Ride sharing economy came about because of Uber. So entirely new industries came, which, as we know, have had a massive impact. Now, what's happening in the is that we are in that very early stages. If you think about like where the late 90s was, with where people are just starting to look at possibilities, and already they're making some massive changes, right? The whole in terms of changing industries and whatnot. Um, the we aren't even at the second innings where we're going to see entirely new categories or new companies coming up. I mean, the only closest one right now is vibe coding, where a lot of people are now doing all of their development work using AI. But already there are verified statistics from places like Microsoft showing that AI-based doctors can, do complicated analysis or diagnosis 4 times more accurately than regular doctors. And you're seeing this, partners at top law firms are saying that, the first 3 years of a recent law school graduates, that entire work can be replaced by AI much faster and cheaper. So you're seeing this across all industries. And I think we're just at the very the first innings, as they say in baseball, and you'll probably see a lot more of these entirely new categories that we haven't seen coming down the road as well.
And thank you. And indeed, like some of the news that is really coming out of the AI world is completely ballooning. When you come to think of how the valuations are in that space, how they are disrupting established business models, it is indeed very, very interesting and exciting. The next question is to the both of you. Really, where do you see the intersection of AI and blockchain, especially with reference to tokenized assets? And Rafe, feel free to go first, and then we'll love to hear from Imran sir.
Rafi, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, first of all, thank you, Imran Saab, for joining us today. It's absolute pleasure every time, and it's a for the benefit of community that they might not know, but Imran Saab has been involved with us for a couple of years now on the blockchain level as well, and it's been helping a lot, especially on the tokenization side, especially the focus around the Sharia compliance. So I think it's very important contribution there. Emma, to your question around the involvement of AI into the blockchain and specifically around the tokenization, I think uh, basically, the synergy has to be looked at from a perspective where things can be automated and where things can be more efficient. It is not always about the flashy stuff, and it is not always about tagging the startup as a AI startup or something. I think it is more about how the efficiencies can be brought in, and I think that those platforms that are designed with the integrated AI blockchain is actually simply kind of are the hallmark of that. And I think tokenization is also in the same way. And Imran Saab and I, we were in Istanbul and we were talking about it a couple of weeks ago that um, every bit of process that goes into the tokenization, if that can be tracked, the workflow can be converted into, like an AI powered automated solution. And ultimately, on top of it, blockchain can provide like secure ownership. So there is like a very imminent and apparent crossover. It is just that tokenization is a new concept relatively, and I think the every single type of tokenization, be it a single asset or a fund tokenization, that needs to be cracked in multiple jurisdiction and in multiple ways. And once it is done a few times properly in a regulatory compliant way, this is where I think the role of AI will start coming in. But I think there is a very much of a natural synergy. um, Even at Zikchen, I think we are pretty much well positioned for doing that. I think the work that's been done around the tokenization, it is being carefully kept in mind that in the coming future, in the near future, how AI can maybe automate 80% of that work, especially around the fund tokenization. So there was always this question around the role of AI and blockchain, and is it absolutely necessary? But I think with the work involved in the tokenization, the role of AI would be phenomenal for sure. Imran Saab, over to you on this point as well.
Sure. No, thanks, Rafi. Absolutely great question, Ahmed. I do think that there's a lot of opportunities at the intersection of AI and especially real-world asset tokenization. I'll kind of categorize it in three broad areas, right? The first area would be intelligent asset discovery and on-chain valuation. So, for example, AI models can scan public records, ESG disclosures, satellite imagery to identify, actual real-world assets that are suitable for tokenization. Because, as we know, not everything is, right? So, identifying those assets is important. Second point is AI-driven, oracles can continuously assess fair value. So you can do dynamic valuations versus waiting for quarterly updates and things like that, which, as you know, is very slow moving today. And then the third thing is that fractionalized logic, right? Your algorithms can determine the optimal way to split assets and figure out how best to tokenize those assets that you've discovered a lot more efficiently than possible, right? So that's the whole area of asset discovery and on-chain valuation, right? Then we get into risk assessment and credit scoring, where you can do everything from AI-based risk models can for lending against fractionalized RWAs can give you a lot better assessments of risk, especially for underbanked regions where credit scoring isn't available, for example. You can also do things like scenario simulation, where predictive AI models can stress test tokenized portfolios, which will obviously help. And then you can create insurance-based structuring, where insurance products can do automatic payouts based on certain smart contracts, right? So that's the whole area of risk assessment. Then we get into automatic compliance and governance, where you can do regulatory classifications, where again AI agents can check KYC, AML, jurisdictional rules, things like that, before even tokenized token issuance, right? So that's a big part of whether you even move forward with that. Smart governance assistance. So you've got smart contracts in place. How do you actually enforce those? How do you look at summarize risk benefits, voting strategies, things like that, for especially when you get into DAOs. And then obviously anomaly detection for fraud, right, becomes really important. So that's the third area. And then we get into things like optimized secondary markets, where you can connect buyers and sellers across fractionalized assets, especially when you have fragmented markets, and you can figure out smart routing algorithms for that. We can also get into personalized robo-advisors that can create baskets of tokenized assets and create a whole new asset class of robo-advisors around RWA portfolios. And we can even do cross-asset swaps, in terms of, again, going across different classes of RWAs, right? Then we get into tokenized ESG and impact assets, where we can look at, again, if a lot of these assets, if they have any kind of claims around ESG or impact or whatnot, verification of all of that data to make sure that you're not just doing greenwashing, which as you know is a big issue in this space, or even impact tracking, which again there's a lot of claims and oftentimes not enough data around it. And then lastly, we get into entirely new AI native asset classes, things like predictive revenue tokenization. So if AI has a track record of doing predictive revenue, can you actually tokenize that, right? So the point is, the on-chain infrastructure that's available today to do high-frequency trading, the richness of the data that's now available, and then the capabilities of AI combined together can make all of those things happen.
I think this predictive one is super interesting. I'm sure someone hearing it out in the community would definitely pick up on this. I think a lot of people have been trying to improve the predictive market, but I think using this is super interesting. I'll definitely we should definitely, I think, Ahmed, send out some notes to some developers and see who picks up the idea.
No, that's what I'm going to do. I think this particular piece from Imran Sahab is a gold mine. I think this makes for maybe 100 ideas that people could build AI first ventures within the blockchain space, and I think that is amazing. And I completely identify with what both of you gentlemen have mentioned. I believe that blockchain, by virtue of its permissionless nature, and the fact that data is readily available allows AI to really flourish, which, in my view, really coming as a blockchain first individual, I see that as a failing of traditional systems where so much of access is gated to data as well as to utilities. Um, Carrying on, the next question is one which is on everyone's mind, which is that for tokenized assets, there is still a some apprehension in terms of how they will find liquidity and price discovery. I want to pose this to you, Imran Saab, first. How do you see AI playing a role in terms of helping us find the same amount of liquidity and depth and price discovery on for tokenized assets, similar to what we have in traditional markets?
Yeah, no, again, great question. Ahmed, I think, as we know, one of the challenges as the tokenization market is building up right now is illiquidity and poor price discovery, right? So what can AI do to help with those things? Again, there's a set of categories. The first one would be kind of continuous multi-source, valuation engines. Today, again, as we said before, in my summary, tokenized RWAs rely on slow periodic appraisals. Can we do real-time valuations that can synthesize diverse data streams and make, continuously updated asset prices available, which will be huge, right? So now traders can act with high confidence on fresh valuations, shorten holding times, create more liquidity, over there, for example, right? The second thing is oftentimes tokenized assets are siloed across multiple blockchains, different marketplaces. Can you create smart order routing agents that can scan all the different venues and predict the best, split the orders dynamically to create best execution, with minimal slippage, right? Things that are available in the securities market, we're now going to be able to offer those, but with the additional complexity in the real world asset tokenization is all of that. Unlike securities, isn't available in your Bloomberg feed. It is spread across a lot of different sources of data that you can be ingested with AI, and then you can have an impact across that, right? So you can use that all of that information to, for example, route to the most favorable on-chain or OTC buyer, for example, if you want. So that's on the liquidity side. You can also do better dynamic spread adjustment if you have continuous valuations, which can also reduce, create tighter spreads, which then again encourage more people to, traders to come in, which again enhances your liquidity. You can also do interesting things. So, for example, if real world trades are slow, costly, just because they're real world assets, they're not securitized. Can you create synthetic asset twins? And then use those to create AI-based derivatives, right? So if you do that, you're now generating synthetic on-chain derivatives, which opens the door to all kinds of futures, options, swaps, etc., which again will dramatically enhance liquidity, but also create entirely new avenues for trading. And then the other thing is behavior, right? So looking at buyer-seller matching and behavior prediction. So again, a lot of trades don't happen because buyers, counterparties don't find each other. Can you use predictive matching engines to be able to, bring them together? And then the other one is sentiment and event-driven liquidity triggers, right? So if there are news on social media, on regulatory filings, etc., that affect what kind of liquidity will happen, can that create liquidity triggers, and help people with going forward with the trade or not? And then finally, as I said before, dynamic fractionalization and pooling, right? So taking static tokens, refractionalizing them to make them available in various formats that traders will want to trade or not. So I think all of those things together. So the point is, you've got the speed, you've got depth from fragmentation, and then you've got potentially new financial instruments with the synthetic twins and the derivatives that we talked about that can all help with these two problems about poor price discovery and liquidity.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Rafe, what would you
No, I
like to
think that that's fantastic. Like this fractionalizing the further tokenized, I think that can be beautiful. Like think about it that there is an asset out there, and then based on the need of the buyer, it's further fractionalized. Or if the composite can be created between the two assets, and then create a wrapper which is a fractionalized wrapper of two assets combined, the
Or the synthetic
possibilities
twins.
are end. Yeah, exactly, synthetic. Yeah, the possibilities are limitless, and I think there are few. Most of them are covered by Imran Sir, but there are a couple of more. Like for example, I think the important part around the tokenization is its compliance and regulatory fulfillment as well. And I think AI can play a very important role by having those AI oracles which are smart enough, which are basically the smart contract which automates this process as well. Because this is a very big challenge, and I think the industry is yet to mature around this. That how the only the complied people in certain ways are able to directly interact with the certain assets which without compliance it's in some cases are not possible. I think AI can play a very big role in that. Also, I think there is a need to talk more about the sentimental analysis of how it is done, how more and more data over the time can be incorporated. There are some metrics around the sentiment analysis, like greed and fear index is there, but then you need to get more and more data for this to actually become more tradable and actionable, right? So think of it like this, that we are talking about things beyond crypto trading or day trading only, right? We are talking about the large meta level, manufacturing data, employment data, every sort of data that keeps coming in and compiling into a single score, and then eventually having an execution engine at the back end, which automatically, as per the user needs, executes. This applies to essentially anything in the side of the robot trading or automated trading, but it is getting more and more important when you come into the tokenization space, because you see it will take years and years or maybe decades to have the slippage of the same level that you have in the normal trading. But in order for someone to make a decision of holding or letting go of an asset, I think once they do it, it would not reverse that fast in the tokenization space. So to have more and more data in place, this can really be helpful. And I think one thing which is very important, and I think this is something which will be very important for the wrappers and the synthetics that are going to be created, is basically the AI powered liquidity management. For example, like we already know that AutoSwap is working towards it, that um, the liquidity pools need to adjust accordingly. Okay, and once the tokenized assets are available, the where to have what kind of liquidity, and then getting the arbitrage and making sure that the arbitrage opportunities are not eating too much into the people's profit. I think this is where the AI can play a major role. The tighter liquidity and the tighter spreads you can provide, the more liquidity you can attract, as liquidity provider makes money by providing liquidity, and this is something which happens in the centralized as well as in the decentralized market. I think AI can play a very significant role by dynamically making the liquidity available. So I believe that, again, a lot of these things are to be built, and while we are talking, many other ideas are popping up. And it is like this, that we are where we were in the DeFi journey in 2016, and all these things were ideas, and over the time, DeFi enthusiasts and the developers, they build those things. So the next 10 years or next 5 years is all about that all these ideas then converted into the tools and dApps that actually build on the tokenized layers and provide easy access to the end user.
Thank you so much for that very detailed answer. And I would just like to add to that I think liquidity is also a function of a lot of correlated events and environments in the real world. Unfortunately, with the blockchain liquidity, we always think of how much money is in the pool. And I think really AI and the kind of oracles that we have today, which can bring data from off-chain environments on-chain, we're going to see a lot of innovations on that front as well, where blockchain environments can start to also mimic our TradFi environments. There was a mention around compliance and regulation, and that was pretty much my next question, because we a lot of people that have interacted with the blockchain space, they are used to this laissez-faire policy, let live and live, and don't ask, see no evil, do no evil. and speak no evil. But of course, with tokenized assets, you cannot really have that, and because there are regulations and there are jurisdictional requirements. Um, Imran Saab, would love to hear your thoughts in terms of how do you see AI playing a role where this process becomes frictionless, not just for investors, but also for regulators, because I feel for them at the end of the day, they have to do their job. We cannot really let everyone run loose. So over to you.
No, absolutely. And see, here's the thing, right? I think our goal here with real world asset tokenization is to go to the mainstream markets, not just the wild west of the, the current blockchain space, right? And those people are a lot more, risk averse, and also focused on regulatory issues. So we have to provide the right compliance and regulatory monitoring frameworks for three classes, right? The issuers themselves, the investors, and then the regulators, right? So the question is, for all of those three, what can AI do? Well, the first one is obviously automated asset onboarding and classification. So even before issuing a tokenized asset, determining whether it's a commodity, a security, which jurisdiction rules apply, you can do all of those things using NLP, model analysis, and use that, automate all of that work, right? As well as maintaining a rules library, for example, that looks at updates of local, national, cross-border regulations. So that speeds up the token launches and reduces the legal guesswork right in the issuance stage. Then when we get into, again, the other part of the issuance is KYC and AML screening, right? So things like, biometric verification, facial recognition, liveness detecting, behavioral anomaly detection, right? Machine learning models can spot unusual patterns in wallet activity, things like that. And then obviously sanctions-less monitoring becomes important as well, especially when you're getting into, politically exposed person lists or things like that. So all of those can help with the issuance side, right? Then you get into, once the tokens are issued, compliance of trades, right? So dynamic access control, who can buy, sell tokens based on regulatory status, residency, accreditation, transfer restrictions based on, smart contracts, all of that can be automated. You can also do continuous transaction surveillance, look at market abuse detection, things like insider trading, wash trading, anomaly detection, again, becomes really valuable over here. Cross market monitoring, tracking the same asset across multiple blockchains to make sure that people aren't acting too smart and trying to route through, other mechanisms. And then regulatory alerting in terms of, updating regulators on suspicious activities, right? The other part of it is obviously the regulatory changes themselves are happening very rapidly, as we know, right? Numerous jurisdictions are coming up; those jurisdictions are making changes themselves. So keeping track of that, right? So NLP, monitoring of those changes, parsing all of that, court decisions, things like that, and making that all available, and then mapping those changes and creating impact assessments for investors becomes important. And then taking all of that information and making it available in terms of disclosures and reporting, not in complicated legal jargon, but in easy to use plain language summaries that investors can understand, as well as potentially creating customized dashboards, which again, make it a lot easier and accessible for investors to be able to see, whether this is a real world asset that they want to get into or not, right? And then finally, you get into cross-border compliance orchestration, because if you have multi-jurisdictional offerings, which increasingly are going to become common these days with the global markets, mapping across multiple regulatory frameworks, as well as routing trades through the right jurisdictional routing to make sure that they're legal and that they're being done in the most efficient and cheapest manner possible, right? So the point is, all of these different things that I talked about can be done today, which wasn't possible with AI to help all three of those entities: the issuers, the investors, and the regulators.
Absolutely, I think that's absolutely right, and I think the real-time enforcement through the smart contracts, it reduces massively couple of things. Number one, it reduces the regulatory anxiety, because right now when you talk to the regulator, their first concern is that who's going to monitor, what is the infrastructure, what are you guys going to do about it. But once you start having this done through AI, and once you start showing that, this is done at a fraction of the cost as compared to what's being done in the banking and all that. Because the on-chain data again is publicly available. You don't have to pull the APIs from here, there, everywhere. Like all the data is available. You can monitor it and you can analyze it through AI. I think this reduces the regulatory anxiety as well as the cost, as well as the action on time as well. You are not bound by a 20, by 9 hours a week, 5 days a week kind of a thing on the action or anything else as well. It's literally 24/7 signaling. Everything is there. You are not bound by anything. So this combination is amazing. And also, I think the importance of using these AI tools when onboarding the customers. I think this is an area which is not appreciated by the blockchain world at this point in time, is to have proper customer onboarding when it comes to the regulatory framework. And in fact, whenever any exchange tries to implement a proper KYC or a proper customer onboarding, it becomes it becomes a question mark, results in the drop off rates and everything. I think that the role of AI can be very interesting here, that if it can somehow fasten up that process of onboarding users. And to be honest, even saw that in Signally some time ago. My friends at KuCoin were telling me that everyone who implements the KYC, they start seeing drop offs more and more, because as we know, this industry does not appreciate the complexity behind the screen that it comes with, but it is important, right? So I think if the role of this in the issuer onboarding as well as the investor verification, I think that is extremely important. And it will just fasten the process, because what we ultimately need to understand is that just by saying that we are going to do tokenization or something else which is more bringing the traditionally long chain, it will not just change the psychological behavior or the psychological association that comes with crypto. It will take a lot of education and beautiful UI UX for it to change, that people should feel that they are still getting the full that, as you said, don't ask, don't say kind of behavior, but it is so nice and so quick that they just don't feel it. And this is only possible if the lot of data is being considered. But as I said, more than the customer onboarding, I think the role that AI can play on the real-time monitoring of the transaction, I think that is a huge space. Interestingly, there is a startup. I think we all know the Chainalysis, right? They do the chain analysis, and they do KYC, AML, and all. They are also starting to use AI, and they are starting to offer some of the tooling around it. Again, I think if someone is looking to create a solid tool that can really scale and make like $1 billion idea, I think this is it. To have a compliance tool specifically for the tokenization, everyone would need it, and it is like literally a 25-30 trillion dollar market size for tokenization. Anyone who comes in at like not one person or maybe like 4 or 5 startups that really provide this piece of ease for the end users and the issuers, I think this can become a $1 billion play very quickly. Again, another idea for people who are developing out here.
No, no, thank you so much, and 100% aligned. I think AI for regulators, AI for lawyers, AI for everyone. I think that is the main takeaway. Um, we're pretty much towards the end, and last question, Imran Saab, this is first to you. Um, well, we can always talk about and always go into as much detail as we want to, but everything ultimately is a vision. It starts out as a vision, and then we, 40, 50 years ago, no matter how much time it takes, we end up somewhere. What does a tokenized AI future look to you? I mean, with all of your experience, having seen so much over the past 4 or 5 decades, how do the next 4 or 5 decades look to you from an AI tokenized future perspective?
No, I don't know if I'm qualified to talk 4 or 5 decades from now, because I can't even predict the world 10 years from now. But one thing I will say is, if we look at the classic, the issues right now that are perhaps impeding the faster adoption of tokenization, especially for real world assets, right? So one of them, for example, is the fact that yes, the blockchain world traditionally has been fast and loose and all of those sorts of things. But if you're trying to expand the pie to bring in your traditional investors, your traditional wealth managers, right? They operate with different rules. What AI is going to do is, as I said, create the regulatory frameworks for issuers, investors, and regulators to feel a lot more comfortable about the risk and regulatory compliance around this. That itself creates a huge mechanism, right? The second thing we talked about is around the areas of price discovery and illiquidity. Again, if you can solve those problems, and we talked about all the different ways that AI can do that, that will dramatically improve the volume, depth, as well as the number of trades that are happening and the number of investors that come in as well. And then we also talked about new models, right? Creating tokens based on predictive revenue streams, for example, creating synthetic tokens, all of those sorts of things. So I think there is an amazing opportunity for startups, for folks who are interested in this intersection to do some amazing work that can dramatically accelerate the adoption of tokenization, and AI will be the engine that makes it possible. So I'm really excited about that vision, and inshallah, I hope that people out there are listening and looking at some startup ideas around this space.
Thank you so much. That's beautiful. Rafa, same question to you, but also with the added caveat, how do you see ZigChain playing a role in your vision for an AI tokenized future?
Yeah, I think AI is a very big enabler going forward. For any kind and every kind of startup, and I think um, Zichin always has, like, we have a very clear vision to bring financial freedom and financial inclusion to the masses across the world. It just goes along with it, and I think we have seen it very clearly in the last year or so that tokenizing the real world yield and bringing it on chain is the way to go ahead. This is the way to scalable finance. The true dream of decentralized finance come into play when you talk about bringing the real world yield on chain and have it available at scale, even at 100 billion, 200, 500 billion, 2 trillion, $5 trillion scale. This yield should be there and it should be scalable and should be available to the masses. So, like, this is absolutely there. But how do we see AI playing a role, as we talked about, from everything, from a customer onboarding to the matchmaking engine to the better liquidity, every single step. I think AI it is and it will continue playing a role. Why is Zichin relevant? Because I think we are we are not doing this for the sake of the narrative, and we are not even going out and calling ourselves a tokenization blockchain. We call ourselves as wealth generation blockchain. Tokenization is a way to do that, right? And 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 I think Zitchen is very much primed to do that. We have, over the last 7 to 8 years, built that distribution muscle, built that understanding of the retail mindset, either through the Signally directly or through white labels or through other partners, that how retail behaves, how retail think. We have the data of years and years. Data is going to be a very, very strong mode going forward in the world. Technology is going to get commoditized. Every channel that you see is going to get commoditized. But what you will have is data, and we have data. We can do a lot of things with it. We can be very smart about it. But I think this is where I think Zigchain will play a very important role, that connecting the right people with the right opportunities in the best, smartest, and the cheapest way. This is where we're gonna win, and I think we have proven it in through our fund management module that we can do it. We can really make it pay as you go, which is the ideal model for any kind of end user. And I think similar structures we will be able to create on the blockchain level as well. So I'm super excited. Um, um, you know, I think this is the future, and anyone, like, people keep saying that, if blockchains need to scale, they need to go towards tokenization and bring the traditional finance liquidity. I say that yes, but if you don't use the AI appropriately, then ultimately you will get left behind, and the other players in the more centralized, in a less efficient way, will beat us. So we need to be smart. We need to be AI first. We need to we will not succeed if we have AI as an afterthought. If AI is part of what we do, every thought process, this is where I think we can win. And I think Zikchen has all the right ingredient.
Thank you so much, both of you, for those excellent answers and your time today, and for sharing your invaluable insights with all of us. This is a wrap. Thank you so much for everyone who joined in. As a next action, I take it upon me to ensure that all of these great ideas that came from this conversation, we are going to package them in some form of an RFP, and we would love to hear from all of you developers out there. If there is something of interest that you think that you can build on ZigChain, we're happy to back you up with capital, with network, with advisory, and with everything that we have. Because ultimately, as my good colleagues over here on this session shared with you, the future is AI first. We're really heading for a world where an AI agent will be managing your portfolio, and in an Internet of Things environment, um, the AI agent will know if I'm running low on groceries, and he's going to go and order it for me, right? But we're not going to win this race if we lack this AI first intuition. But thank you so much once again, gents, for honoring us with your insights and your invaluable time. And once again, thank you to the community. Until next time, which will be from Bali very soon. It's Allah Hafiz, ciao, and wherever you are, take care of yourself. Stay safe.
Thank
Talk to
you.
you soon. God bless.